Believe that will make you think, flowing like water that you love to drink.
Now get busy!
Okay, let's get started. That was a bit dramatic, right? Unfortunately, those weren't shots from a Tarantino movie. It's just the world we live in. I believe that the way we consume media is shaping our views, reinforcing our biases, and deepening political divides. This is called political polarization. But what exactly is it? And more importantly, why does it matter? Let's talk about it. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, polarization can be defined as the splitting of a society into two distinct groups at opposite ends of a spectrum, often resulting in tension, division, and a decline of moderate voices. However, polarization is not a new concept. In the past, newspapers often aligned with certain political parties, and some bias existed in all forms of media. However, there was still a shared set of facts and standards. Before the digital age, most people got their news from a few major networks. That all changed with the rise of cable news and talk radio in the 1980s, and most importantly, social media in the early 2000s. Today, algorithms decide what we see online. Social media platforms show us content that keeps us engaged, often based on posts we've already liked or interacted with. This echo chamber effect can contribute to polarization, as we only tend to hear one side of an argument, never hearing other views that might challenge those we hold, reinforcing our perception that we are correct or on the right side. Misinformation is also a big problem. A study by MIT in 2018 found that false news stories were 70% more likely to be retweeted than true stories. They also found that it took true stories around 6 times longer to reach 1,500 people than fake news stories. This can make it extremely hard for people to separate fact from fiction. When people lose trust in the media and in each other, democracy suffers. This can lead to misinformation, political instability, and even violence, such as the Dublin riots in 2023. If left unchecked, extreme polarization can render compromise nearly impossible. Governments struggle to function, communities become divided, progress is slowed, and peace is undermined. But how does this play out in real life? To understand this, I conducted a survey which gathered over 100 responses. First, I asked where people get most of their news from. A whopping 67% said social media, while only 6% rely on newspapers. This shift in news consumption matters because traditional media follows journalistic standards, where social media often prioritizes engagement over accuracy. I also asked whether people think opinions have become more extreme compared to 10 years ago. 71% said yes. That's not surprising considering how algorithms push divisive content and reinforce echo chambers. But how often do people actually fact-check the information that they see online? Worryingly, only 7% say they do every time. Meanwhile, 31% admit they rarely fact-check, and 5% never do. This means that information can spread easily, mostly unverified. Finally, I asked participants to rank news sources from most to least reliable. Newspapers came out on top, followed by TV and radio. Social media ranked just above word of mouth, meaning people know it's unreliable, yet still use it for their news. These numbers paint a clear picture. We're consuming more news than ever, but we're not always questioning it. And in a world where misinformation spreads fast, that's a very dangerous combination. Numbers tell one side of the story, but what about individual experiences? To get a personal perspective, I spoke to my friend Yushin about how media influences people's political views and whether he's noticed the effects of polarization firsthand.
People my age are more politically divided than ever before, mostly due to the influence of social media, say for example Instagram, TikTok. The algorithms of those platforms try to feed you what they think will keep you most engaged, what will keep you on the app. And what keeps you most engaged are most likely opinions that you agree with. It's very easy to fall into echo chambers, and because of that it's a lot easier for people on those platforms to deviate more and more from the political norm. I have noticed social media influencing my political opinions whenever I fall into a sort of echo chamber and I see all of these comments disagreeing and agreeing with something. I can literally feel my own opinions shifting to match those of the echo chamber, and that kind of scares me at times. I think polarization does make it harder for people to listen to other people with differing perspectives, mostly because once you have a belief that's so deeply ingrained that it kind of becomes part of your identity. So when someone else comes along and has a differing opinion, it's very hard to not feel like It's a personal attack on your identity. I think people my age should take in multiple sources of news at any given time. Say, for example, multiple newspaper agencies, multiple websites, multiple platforms. Cross-reference them, and eventually you'll come up with something that isn't totally biased.
Political division isn't just a social issue, it's a threat to democracy. That's why the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 16 focuses on peace, justice, and strong institutions. It emphasizes the need for fair media, reliable information, and inclusive governance. It is imperative that we as a collective protect this. So what can we do? First, we need to be aware of our biases and question the information we consume. Media literacy is key. People should check sources, engage with different perspectives, and avoid spreading unverified information. Polarization is not inevitable, it's something we can change. If we think critically, engage with different viewpoints, and hold social media platforms accountable, we can rebuild trust in society. We can't sleepwalk through our media consumption, allowing ourselves to be manipulated. We need to wake up and take control. Think before you share, engage before you judge. Democracy depends on it.